Welcome to Money and Planet, the channel where finance meets climate action. Today, we're tackling a question that many investors, policymakers, and everyday citizens are asking. Green bonds. Are they a real force for good, or just a slick marketing tool with a green label? Let's strip away the buzzwords and get to the heart of the matter. First, the basics. A bond is simply a loan. An investor lends money to a government, company, or institution, and in return, they get repaid with interest. Straightforward. Now, when that bond is labeled green, the promise is that the borrowed money will fund projects that are good for the environment. Solar farms, wind turbines, electric buses, wetlands restoration, sustainable housing. The list goes on. In theory, green bonds should be a powerful weapon against climate change. They take the traditional mechanics of finance and point them toward urgent environmental challenges. But do they deliver on that promise? The numbers are impressive. Since the first green bond launched in 2007, the market has exploded. Annual issuance has gone from a few billion to hundreds of billions of dollars each year. By 2025, green bonds are projected to make up a significant share of global debt markets. For governments, they've become a way to showcase climate leadership. For companies, they're a badge of environmental credibility. For investors, they're a tool to align portfolios with sustainability goals. So far, so good. But here comes the twist. One of the biggest criticisms is that green bonds often finance projects that would have happened anyway. Imagine a city already planning to expand its subway system. If it issues a green bond to fund that same project, is it really creating new climate action? Or just relabeling an existing plan? This is what experts call the additionality problem. Without additionality, the green label is little more than a marketing spin. Then there's the question of definitions. What exactly counts as green? In some markets, building an energy-efficient gas plant qualifies. In others, only zero-emission technologies make the cut. This lack of uniform standards leaves plenty of room for interpretation and abuse. Let's not forget reporting. Investors often demand transparency, but many green bond issuers provide vague updates with glossy reports full of photos and general statements rather than hard numbers on emissions avoided or ecosystems protected. That's where greenwashing sneaks in. A bond may be labeled green, but without rigorous accountability, its true impact is hard to measure. But to be fair, it's not all smoke and mirrors. Green bonds have sparked important conversations inside boardrooms and government ministries. By tying financial instruments to environmental goals, they force decision-makers to think about climate in a structured way. They've also attracted investors who might otherwise stay away from sustainable projects. Pension funds, insurers, and large asset managers often prefer the predictability of bonds over riskier investments like startups. Green bonds give them a climate-friendly entry point. There's even evidence of a greenium, where investors accept slightly lower yields in exchange for holding a bond that aligns with their values. It's not huge, but it shows that markets are willing to sacrifice a sliver of return for the sake of sustainability. Still, the question remains, is this enough? Critics argue that while green bonds have grown in volume, they haven't necessarily shifted capital at the scale or speed the climate crisis demands. Funding incremental improvements, like making a coal plant a little cleaner, may not cut it when the science calls for rapid decarbonization. That's why new initiatives are pushing the market forward. The European Union has created a green bond standard that requires strict alignment with its taxonomy, a detailed classification system of what counts as sustainable. Other organizations, like the Climate Bonds Initiative, are certifying bonds based on rigorous criteria. These efforts aim to weed out weak claims and create stronger accountability. If they succeed, investors could finally trust that their dollars are driving real-world climate outcomes. And there's innovation beyond green bonds, too. Blue bonds finance ocean and water-related projects. Social bonds focus on human development goals like healthcare and education. Sustainability-linked bonds tie interest rates to specific performance targets, like reducing emissions by a set percentage. Together, these instruments expand the toolkit of sustainable finance. But let's bring it back to green bonds and the original question: real impact or just marketing? The answer is complicated. Green bonds alone won't save the planet. They don't automatically transform business models, and they won't stop fossil fuel companies from expanding production. But dismissing them entirely misses the point. They are a step, a signal that mainstream finance is beginning to recognize climate risks and opportunities. And in a world where every $1 trillion matters, even incremental tools can help. Let's look at a real-world case. In 2017, Poland issued a green sovereign bond, the first of its kind. The money funded projects like clean transportation and reforestation. It wasn't revolutionary, but it set a precedent that other countries, from France to Chile, have since followed. These sovereign green bonds have helped governments frame climate action as a matter of national policy, not just corporate branding. Another example comes from the corporate side. Apple has issued multiple green bonds to fund renewable energy and low-carbon design across its supply chain. Critics argue Apple could afford to do this anyway, but by issuing bonds, it brings investors into the story and creates broader accountability. These cases show that while the impact might not always be transformational, green bonds are helping normalize the idea that finance and sustainability must go hand in hand. For investors, the key is discernment. Look beyond the label. Ask, what project is this bond funding? How transparent is the reporting? Is the issuer aligning with credible standards? For policymakers, the challenge is to tighten rules, harmonize definitions, and ensure that green bonds channel money where it's most needed, not where it's easiest. And for all of us, it's a reminder that finance is a double-edged sword. It can be used for short-term greenwashing, or it can be harnessed to drive genuine climate solutions. The difference lies in how we design the system and how much accountability we demand. So next time you hear about a billion-dollar green bond, don't just applaud. Ask the hard questions. What's the impact? What's the additionality? Who's checking the results? Because at the end of the day, what matters isn't the color of the bond, it's the color of our future. Here at Money and Planet, we'll keep digging into these questions, separating the signal from the noise, and helping you understand how finance intersects with the climate crisis. If you enjoyed this exploration, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with others who care about sustainable investing. And remember, money shapes the planet. The way we direct it will decide whether we build a sustainable future or just market one. See you in the next video.